So we are here today to break news that may be self-evident, but it's news nonetheless. So about 2 years ago now, we had a press conference on this very spot to announce our intended investments in the Elm Street Garage, which is the city's largest parking structure by far. It holds roughly 1,100 spaces, and it was built in the late 70s as part of some of the investments in the downtown back then. But the problem with the garage is that it hadn't been kept up over the years, and because it hadn't been kept up, people didn't want to park in it. And so we took it upon ourselves a couple of years ago to figure out how we could turn this major asset, major eyesore in many ways, into a major asset, a major attraction. And so, you see, we take our inspiration from projects all around urban America that have turned parking garages into places that people want to be, where people want to park, where people wish to spend time. As I've said so many times before, there's no successful city in America that doesn't have a vital and engaging downtown, a fun place to be. And in order to make that happen, you have to make it easy on people to get there and to stay there. And so that's the role this garage plays. So we went ahead and did what good cities do, what effective cities do, which is to reinvest in our key assets. So we announced then that we were, through 2 phases, going to be investing about $5.5 million into this structure to make it modern from a structural standpoint as well as from an aesthetic standpoint. And so what we've done over the last couple of years is just that. Through the work of DFFM and all of our contractors, our designers, MVG, and many others, as well as our traffic division, and Ari Sky, our CFO, that we were able to turn this into something that I think people have grown to like. Obviously, it's been up and running for a few months now in its new form, and through a series of rain days, we're only having the press conference now, but we did want to still hold this press conference because it really does bear emphasizing that we are committed to reinvesting in those things that are important to us. And then secondly, to let everybody know that this is a place to park. It's safe, it's well lighted, it's inviting, it's convenient. So a considerable amount of money has been spent on upgrading the physical infrastructure of the place, the floor decks, the walls, the lighting, the security cameras. There are new automated pay stations as well. Plus, there have been significant aesthetic upgrades, and you can see them. For those of you who have been familiar with the Elm Street Garage, it's self-evident. It's the entry signs, it's the newly painted and reconstructed railings, it's the new facade, it's the lighting all across the place, it's the colored LED lighting. You see this month that we have it all lighted up for Pride Month in rainbow colors, and so many more things. And if you walk into the lobby, you behold a public space that is just completely different from the way it used to be. And so we're here today just to say, look, come to the Elm Street Garage. It's safe, it's convenient, and you will like parking there. Just by the numbers, this has been a $5.5 million project, as I mentioned. About $5 million was bonded from the city's parking enterprise fund, which we set up a few years ago. Essentially, the enterprise fund allows us to take revenue from the garage and from the meters around the downtown and reinvest it back into downtown infrastructure. And so that's what we've done in a big way. The meters were done a few years ago using the same financing mechanism, and now our garage. And so this is really a way to modernize what we have. About $500,000 came from a National Park Service grant, so we want to thank the Park Service for their support. Obviously, this garage supports a national park, and so that was an entirely appropriate and fitting investment. And look, this is the kind of stuff, again, that high-functioning cities do, and it wouldn't work without the support of the City Council. I want to thank all the councilors for their work on this project, their support of this project. I want to thank Frank Tedesco and his team over at MVG for their great design work. They've done so much great work around the city over the years, and they continue to do it. And projects large and small. I just want to say thank you for your not only your leadership on this, Frank, but also the the hard work that your team has put in along the way. Track, as well as a number of contractors, have done a great job making sure that this project stays on budget, and it stayed on budget, and we really appreciate their hard work on it as well. And Mark Champagne, who you'll hear from in a moment, did a fabulous job, as well as his predecessor, Kenny Blanchard, and making sure this thing moved forward. So great all-around project. I want to call Ari Sky up just to give you a few more numbers, just in the interest of completeness, and then ask Mark to come on up and say a few words. And I also want to thank, along the way, our city's Chief Operating Officer, Christina Conley, who's standing behind us, helping marshal this project along, as well as Lori Alfonso, our acting director of the Traffic Commission. So thanks, guys, for all of your work. And without any further ado, let me call up Ari.
Thank you, Mayor. So what enabled this project to happen was the creation of the Downtown Enterprise Fund. The City Council was very helpful in this approach. The idea was to take revenue from the garages and from the meters downtown and channel that money into the downtown. So it's an important point that this $5.5 million project involved no taxpayer money, no taxes to make it happen. It was a creation of the fund that allowed that to happen. As the mayor mentioned, it's a $5.5 million project, a little more than that. $5 million is coming through a revenue bond against the Downtown Enterprise Fund, which is basically the fees that the parkers pay, and using that cost to roll into the improvements. And then there's a $500,000 grant from the federal government called the FLAP grant, Federal Land Access Grant, which was a grant that enabled us to step up the game a little bit in terms of the lobby, signage, and the wayfinding and so on. As you see in the tour through the building, it really looks terrific. It's just a total change in look. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ari. Again, I wanted the construction of this project to happen, took place on time and on budget. It was very effective, and it looks great. Again, I just want to thank the guys from Track, Bill Tracy, as well as our good friend Bob Long, for just being so effective in what they do. And to speak a little bit more about that, I want to call up our Director of Facilities and Fleet Management, Mark Champagne, who's this is one of many important projects on Mark's plate, and he so skillfully moves them along. So let me call up Mark. Mark, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Good morning. This project was a good example of an asset that had not been maintained for many years, but actually since it was built, as the mayor said, in the late 70s. And we go through a list of what a building like this needs to have done to it in order to sustain for the long term. And then we also think about the things that we'd like to be able to do, which was to enhance the aesthetics of the building, enhance the safety of the building, and basically turn it into more of a user-friendly experience for the folks that use the garage. Certainly there's more work to be done incrementally as we move forward, but the baseline, the structure is stabilized now. It's very well lit. We've got new security cameras, as I said, and to be specific, the job did come in under budget. I believe that the balance left was about $36 and some odd cents when we were all said and done, and that's where it ended up. That's right.
It's not enough for lunch.
Right. It was a good project, good collaboration. This was a project where we collaborated with we had a great contractor to work with. MVG is always great to work with on many of the projects we do in the city here. The mayor's office, CFO's office, our department, facilities and fleet management, as well as working with the Traffic Commission directly on many aspects of the project. It really was a true collaboration, and we're happy to see it get kicked off today. Thanks.
All right. So I'll open it up for questions if you guys have any, but obviously this is the kind of project that sort of lends itself to pictures as much as anything else. So once we wrap up, we can take a look at stuff if you'd like. If you have anything, or you can just ask me along the way if you want. Yeah, let's go do that. So is this a touch screen at all? Or is it just?
It is a touch. No, it's not touch screen.
Yeah, it sounds right.
C-Street schedule's on there too.
What can you do with this machine, Laura?
This is where you would pay to get out. So when the patrons come in, they press a button, an entry ticket comes out. There's signs saying, you know, you can go to different pay stations. We have 3 available all on the first level. So the entry ticket, before going to their vehicles, they'll come over, put it in their, put in their barcode, stand it. We'll read off exactly how much they owe. They confirm it. They'll either slide in their credit card at that point, or when it's green, the cash. At that point, once it's paid, there's a receipt that comes out, which they use to get out, as well as if they're here on, business-wise for reimbursements.
One thing worth noting is a significant efficiency improvement. Both garages were previously staffed by cashiers who had to work in the gates. This system has enabled us to automate that process entirely. So we save 4 positions, I believe?
Yes.
Yeah, 4 positions. And there's a capability to have the facility open on a regular basis as well, with paying customers.
Okay.
All right, thanks guys.